Hi there, welcome back to Not Another Budget. I'm Nicole, and on this channel I'm attempting to cash budget my way out of debt, fix several years of financial misbehaviour and bring you a wider variety of content in 2025 as my income kind of fluctuates, things I want to do to address that, analyse that, which is very much the subject of today's video, because I alluded to this in my latest budget video, which I believe went out on Monday, and said I was going to be discussing it in a bit more detail because it kind of deserves its whole video. And what I wanted to discuss with you guys today was income realisations. Having, from the majority of my working life, always had income that was inconsistent, paid at varying different times in different ways, having to juggle multiple forms of income streams just to make up the basics. I now find myself in the position I'm 33 this month, so 33 years old, of finally having a stable, secure source of income in an industry and a profession which is incredibly secure. There will always be a need for teachers. They maybe not necessarily where I live in my part of the world, but I have those skills and that training and the ability to therefore go ahead and earn money through teaching. It's also a industry where there is pay progression year on year, and also pay rises to a certain extent year on year as well. So I'm starting off at kind of the bottom pay scale rung as a teacher, and my income is only going to grow for as long as I stay in the teaching profession. As to how well it grows is a completely separate discussion that is not really, from a teaching perspective, it's not what we're discussing today. But having always had income that was inconsistent and scrambling, and for the first good year and a half of this channel, that was very much how my income came in, multiple sources and moving things around and trying to get it in. I kind of, with a certain amount of naivety, fell into the trap of thinking from September that my income from my teaching would allow me to do everything and anything that I wanted, and that I would be able to do debt payments and savings and X, Y, and Z. And that, I think, coincided with a generalised increased cost of living for basic amenities like food and fuel, energy, everything like that. It became apparent to me across January and February that was not going to be the case, and I needed a bit of a reality check personally about the income that I had that was definitely set coming in and what I was able to do with it. And the key thing there is the income that was definitely coming in. I kind of realised throughout February that my income by itself is great for covering general day-to-day, but anything extra or anything out of the norm, it doesn't allow me to do. I set myself the goal, quarterly goals, and the first quarterly set of goals for 2025, January to the end of March, was to focus on my savings. And to a certain extent, I have been able to do that. If I go to my savings goals and what I wanted to achieve and what I said to myself I wanted to achieve, I was largely successful. And I was successful because I took advantage of a unexpected student loan payment, and that allowed me to do certain things. So bringing you to these goals, I wanted to fully fund £500 into an annual gifting fund. Well, I did that, and then subsequently went and purchased those gifts. I wanted to save £1,000 into a 3k binder by April the 1st, and whilst I haven't got £1,000 sitting in the said 3k binder, what I did was pay 1 month ahead on my rent, which was a sum of £950, because I would like to move to the point eventually where I am 1 month, possibly more months ahead on all of my bills, and therefore I have a bit of a cushion, a buffer that's built up, in addition to any cash-based savings. £400 into a Christmas fund, £300 into an outings fund, and £300 into a Bowie Meds vet pot. Now, the two big ones here I've saved £1,000 into a 3k binder, and there's also a £900 what I'm calling Big Bowie fund, which will cover things like a new heart scan or potentially end-of-life care, because he is seriously ill, and there are financial implications on that. That wasn't part of these goals, but I just looked and went, on balance, and this is a video I did in January, it's the better thing to do. But I've not sorted out anything to do with the Christmas sinking fund. The outings fund I'd started to build, and then I pulled that back into my budget in February. And then the £300 Bowie Meds Vets pot, I realised that I'd miscalculated that, because he's also due, a £300 spend at the vets at the same time as wanting to put money aside for the next one. So realistically, that pot needs to be £600. So that's where we're sitting. At the same time, we're approaching March, and I need to start doing the preparation for Q2's goals, because I said to myself, I'm not going to have anything to do with my debt. I'm almost going to bury it for a little bit for this Q1 to try and get those savings pots built up. And then from Q2, I need to start addressing my debt and tackling that, because I'm aware that it's there. It's not going anywhere in some cases, just by virtue of kind of cost of living and arrears growing and things, that it's increased slightly. That's not because I've put extra debt on myself. It's just, it has. And I need to get an accurate breakdown of debt numbers again. I need to start contacting companies about minimums and percentages and disposable income and everything to do with that. And that's not something that you can just do overnight. That takes a little bit of work. So I'm sitting here at the beginning of March, and I need to start analysing my income. Because whenever you approach a debt company to talk about what is affordable, they ask for an income expenditure breakdown. So it's good to have one of those that's up to date. And in doing that process and starting to go through that process, I'm looping back round again to the realisation that my income as a whole is not going to allow me to do everything that I want to do. I'll still need to continue to put some money aside for savings in Q2, 3 and 4, as well as tackle my debt. I still have a large expense. I've got a bill that's going to come back into my budget after April, because I will no longer be entitled to council tax exemption from April. The Masters, has ended for me. So the council tax exemption runs up until the new financial year, and then I will have to start paying council tax again monthly. So I wanted to go through and do that, and go through an income analysis and look at what my income looks like now and roughly what I pay for. And then also, if I wanted to do things like pay off debt, like put money towards savings, like tweak some of my flexible categories in response to rising costs, then what does that look like? What income shortfall do I have, and what could I possibly do to tackle that? Now, a lot of this is, we're going to say broad numbers, and I haven't done an in-depth breakdown into what could I need to bring in. I've just sat there and gone, okay, let's play with this, let's tweak this, but I've not spent hours on it. And I've very much kind of gone from now to the extreme, and you're about to see that here. Now, my standard teaching income on a normal month, obviously I'm on half pay at the minute, so my income is down. But this is assuming that I'm on a normal pay. My rent is £9.50. My council tax at the minute is nothing. I pay a nominal amount to energy, but it doesn't cover everything, and therefore that's an arrears that are going. And my water rates are 50 because my water provider want us to pay for both our current year's usage and next year's usage. It's something that I could quibble and argue about, and I haven't had the energy to do so. My mobile is 16, my Wi-Fi is 32, my cloud-based storage is 250, and then my 3 subscriptions, Amazon Prime, Spotify and YouTube, £9, £12 and £13. My car tax is £17 and my car insurance is £60, and I have rounded up on these numbers. And I don't have contents insurance, and I've zeroed it out, but it's there because it's something I do feel like I need to start paying for going forward. Council tax as well is there, but zeroed out. So my bills at the minute are around £1,211 and 50p, which is about right. And a large amount of that is taken up by my rent. I feel that the amount I'm paying for my mobile £16 is reasonable. I feel that the amount I'm paying for my Wi-Fi, £32, is probably on the cheaper side. Having gone for the super cheap suppliers, I found that the coverage and the service wasn't sufficient, and at the same time, I don't feel like I need to pay for a super high-end massive package. £32 I'm happy with. Car tax I have no control over, and my car insurance is as good as it's going to be at the minute. So we then come down to flexible kind of expenses, and we're going to kind of ignore this side of it for the minute because I did a thing with arrows which kind of confuses things. So I would say on average, on a normal working month, my fuel is about £150. That covers my commute to work, a couple of visits to my parents, it covers the odd pop into the local town, and it might go some way to the costs of an outing or a trip to do social things. But that is very much monitored. If I had to very, very quickly jump in the car and drive the other end of the country, there is not a fuel fund there to cover that. My food, I've put about £180, and I mourn the days that I could do a £20-25 a week food shop. It's something I really do struggle with, particularly as those costs are going up. And this at the minute is about £45 a week for a single person. This doesn't include any cleaning supplies. I have a separate category for those, and it doesn't include anything to do with the cat. So it's just food. So £45 a week, and that would include a takeaway, or it could include something that's eating out based as well, because it comes under the food category. And for me, those things are so rare that they don't really need their own budget line item. But I know for other budgeters, they do have that, and that's completely fine. Cat meds on average are about £200 a month. And his food, even so, I bulk buy 3 months worth of his food at any one time, and that averages out at about £100 a month for food and litter, because he's on veterinary food. Toiletry / household, so that's things like my deodorant and toothpaste, and then bleach and toilet duck and kitchen towel or whatever. That's a actual category, and it's £25, and it's on the leaner side, because there have been a couple of months where I've gone, right, I won't get my moisturiser, or I won't get the body lotion this month. I need to get bin bags instead. So it's a category which I could definitely do with putting a lot more money to, but it's one that I'd keep an eye on at the minute. I always put a spending category down, and I think that even when you are paying off debt, you need to give yourself an amount of money to spend. If you're someone who is not a spender by nature, and £10 or £15 a week is more than enough for you, fantastic. But I am a spender, so I set myself £20 to £25 a week, £100 a month. I may choose to blow all of that in the first week. If so, that's what I've done. I may choose to space it out. Some months I go over that category. Some months I don't hit it at all. And then a day out / outing, and this very much ties into me pretending that I have a work-life balance, because teaching is very full on, and going, yeah, I'm going to go drive to see the friend, and there'll be parking charges, and we'll go for a coffee, and we might go for lunch, or we might do something like that, just a little fund, or we'll go to a National Trust property and we'll visit the second-hand bookshop. Like, me trying to bring this into my budget now and doing a once a month type thing. Obviously at the minute I'm sick, it's not going well, it's not happening, but it means that on balance my total expenditure should be around £2,006.50. Now, in actuality, my fuel may be slightly lower. It might not be £100 exactly that it's averaged out to. It's probably something like £94. I don't really and always do the £40 day out / outing. Sometimes it doesn't get touched at all. So whilst I have a minus of £19.50 against my actual budget, in reality, this is made up very, very quickly. But there's no debt. There's no savings. If I want to get my hair cut, so I've provisionally booked a haircut in for March because it's been 6 months since I've had my hair cut and coloured. And because I have long hair, I have thick hair, you get charged extra for that. So if I wanted a cut and a colour on my hair the first time in 6 months, it would cost about £135. Now at the minute, and I'm not saying I'm having this appointment, by the way, it's an example that I'm giving to you. At the minute, I haven't saved. and split that £130 across the 6 months or across the 12 or 16 weeks, however long it would be on average between appointments. So I would need to get my hands on £135 to have that appointment. There's no fund there for that. There's no fund there for a beautician's visit. There's no fund for anything like that. And whether you should be doing these things while you're trying to pay off debt or aggressively save is a debate that will not be settled on this one video. And it's a debate that will forever continue within the budgeting community. So it's not a debate I'm going to get into. It's just an example I'm going to give. If I had children and I had a family, which I don't have. I am a solo individual household at the minute with one solo stable form of income. There's no money in here or allowed in here for wraparound care. There's no money in here for kids supplies. There's no money in here for the cost of having children on a day-to-day basis. There's no fund set aside for next year's school uniforms or school bags. There's no fund set aside for school trips. So my solo income, which on paper, just under £2,000 a month, would be significantly stretched were I having to pay for other people alongside a sick cat. And the reason why my cat's costs are so high, if you're new here, is because my cat has two significant, what they would class as terminal conditions. He has hypothyroidism, and then he has an issue with his heart, which makes him uninsurable. He's also 10 years old, so on that basis, apparently he's uninsurable. But both those two conditions as well means that I have to pay out of pocket for everything for him. He has to be managed by medication, and for the past year and 4 months since his diagnosis, he's led a fantastic quality of life, and touch wood, it's being managed well. But a significant amount of my flexible money, £300, goes on my cat every month without fail. So then I wanted to do an exercise of, okay, I know from April, so realistically paying from May, I'm going to have to find what I think is going to be my council tax amount, £150. I should probably, this needs to be up here, I should be probably upping my energy payment when I use less in the summer to try and nip away and eat up some ground on those arrears and try and cover my winter usage. And I would really like to actually pay for contents insurance. It's something that's a little bit of a concern to me that I'm not paying for that. So increasing my energy bill by £50, obviously that's plus 158 and that's plus 13, brings my fixed bill expenses up to £1,432.50. So that's quite a jump. I've not increased my subscriptions. I've not increased my water. I'm not covering or paying what my energy supplier would like me to pay. And in their eyes, if I pay £417 a month, that would also pay off my arrears, my usage, and next year's usage. That's not even factored in here. So all of a sudden we have a bit of a bigger jump. And then this gap here starts to narrow. So let's then roll into what happens with the flexible expenses, because we kind of need to look at that as well. Let's say that the cost of fuel massively increases, which we can't rule out happening. And at the minute, whilst it costs me an average of £1.33 per litre at the pump, what if it goes up closer to £2 a litre for unleaded? So let's say I increase by £50 a month, and I may do a couple of extra journeys within that, but that's what I have. Let's say the cost of food massively goes up, but I try and work it through and eat through my preps a little bit more, and I try and shop a bit more seasonally, and I really narrow down and I cut out a lot of treats from my shop. Let's say I bump up my food spend to about £200, so £50 a week on average, or £40 a week if it's a 5-week month. This is working on the basis that we're having a 4-week month here, guys. I would still say that probably needs to go up a little bit more, but let's just work with easy numbers. Let's say the cost of Bowie's meds don't increase drastically and his food doesn't increase drastically, and this sticks at £300 for now, but equally can't rule out those happening. Let's say toiletry costs go up. So I make that £40, and you can see where I'm doing a plus category here. Let's say that I increase my spending because I get a bit emotionally spending and I find that the whole thing is really stressful and I need a bit more of a balance. So let's say I increase my spending by £60, and let's just make the numbers easier again, and I increase my day out fund to £60 because I decide, you know what, I'm going all in. I'm going to really aggressively hit my debt and stuff, but I need a bit of a balance to that. I need to make sure that I'm looking after myself, and I need to kind of do these things. Obviously it's debatable, but this is an exercise and I wanted to give myself rounder numbers. And let's say I decided that I was going to continue to do my hair and look after my hair and get it coloured and get it cut properly and get it thinned out a little bit more and less tatty. And I decided that every 12 to 14 weeks I was going to get my hair cut, working on the basis that it was the same amount and that cost doesn't go up, because when their supplies go up, their costs have to go up. And I save £45 a month towards my hair. All of a sudden, I don't need a calculator and a sum here to tell you that we're already into an excess before we start. Let's say I say that in 2.5 years, so 30 months, I'm going to completely pay off all of my debt. And I'm working on the basis that I have £10,000 worth of debt. I've not done an updated debt total. I just needed easy numbers here, guys. So I did £350 worth of debt payments. And then at the same time, I looked at my savings and went, I got to fund a move, I've got to fund a replacement car because my car's on its last legs, I need to get more set aside for Bowie, all of those general life things that I have no one else bringing an income in to support and halve these costs for me and also share the load here. I need to save £500 a month. It's the year when everything's happened. It's the year where I've got to replace the car and got to replace the fridge and got to replace the washing machine, and Bowie needs 4 more heart scans than I've set aside money for, and I need an emergency fund for this, and this breaks and I've got to replace that, and I've got to move out of my house, and I've got to, because there are some people where they've had those years where shit hits the fan all at once in 1 year. And you're chasing your tail. So let's say I need to save £500 a month. That hypothetical total income expenditure goes from £2,006.50 on a normal month to £3,330.50. And all of a sudden I have a minus, I'm in the hole, for £1,343.50 a month. Now, this is the extreme end of the situation. There's no lifestyle creep in terms of increased subscriptions to XYZ wellbeing fitness service. There's no gym membership. There's nothing like that. It's, I know I could do with increasing this, and this definitely jumps in, and I feel like this is becoming more of a need, particularly as the cost of things are going up, and it's a bit harder to just replace something if it breaks and if it goes. And that potentially the price increases up here are also not due to lifestyle creep. It's just due to crappy global supply chains and costs, which are completely out of my control, but I'm stuck in this in the same way that many people are. And let's say as a result of that, I go, sod it, I'm going to give myself more spending money, and sod it, I'm going to go on a couple more days out because the world is on fire. I need to look after me a little bit more, but I kind of need to do the responsible thing and pay off some debt. And ideally, I'd like it done in 12 months, not 30 months, but let's just be realistic here. And I kind of need to get some savings set aside, and oh poop, I'm on a minus. So how do you address that minus? Even if we end up sitting halfway in the middle somewhere, and I don't account for lifestyle creep, and I don't account for increased costs, and I don't increase any of these, even if so let's take off the £50 for more fuel, let's take off the £20 for more food. Let's take off the £15 for toiletries. Let's take off the £60 for spending and the £60 for days out and the £45 for hair. I'm still £1,093.50 over budget. So that's why it's really good to do this income analysis, because as someone who is going through at the minute and treating, whilst I'm signed off sick, treating Vinted like a job to give me a bit of a focus to try and keep, and that focus as well is good from a mental health perspective, because it means that I'm trying not to wallow, and it's keeping me as active as I can be. It's also through the process of doing that I have fallen into sourcing and selling. I've obviously got a large stack of my own things to sell, and whilst I disagree significantly with Dave Ramsey on a lot of things, his motto of sell so much that the kids and the pets think they're next isn't always a bad thing. Obviously don't sell things you genuinely need, but I certainly have enough stuff that I could do with shifting and moving on. But as is already clear here, once I run out of my own stuff to sell, if I've been able to rake in a good amount of money for a short amount of time and I want to keep that going 12 to 30 months on a debt payment, then how do I keep that going? So I've fallen slightly into, I've seen a deal, I'm going to get that and hang on to that for a bit. And it's not been extreme, and it's been taken out of the money that I have been bringing in, and I've been able to keep a good amount of that money for me. And not do a full 100% reinvestment back into future things. But certainly I think that this exercise and the whole point of this video really highlights in red, blue, black, green and white that my single income by itself is great for living paycheck to paycheck. But making headway and covering extra stuff and things which are outside of my control. And do you know what? I am going to get my hair cut. I do apologise out there to everyone who thinks that you should live like a monk in a cave while you pay off debt. I'm going to get my hair cut. Ooh, big thing. Like, I can't do this on this. And I kind of wanted, in doing this, to find out what are some targets I need to set myself financially to bring in that's extra, because what could it allow me to do? And it doesn't need to be as extreme as all of this. But even getting rid of this, as we've seen, means that at the minute, to save £300, to pay off £350 worth of debt, and I repeat, I'd want that done sooner, and to save 500 still means that I need in excess of £1,000 coming in and not cover anything like this. And we've not addressed the fact that cat meds and cat food may go up in price. So this is a good but really uncomfortable exercise to sit there and do. And I do encourage you to go away and do your own income analysis, particularly as, leaving the politics out of it, we know that costs of goods on both sides of the Atlantic have shot up. And not just recently either. Cost of living crisis was a phrase that came around in 2024. That was prior to any election that happened, both in the UK or the USA. Cost of goods shot up. Costs of goods are still shooting up. Costs of raw materials and energy are shooting up. Our energy bills are going up by an average of 6.5% in the UK. We need to look at, I feel, within our budgets, are we, as much as it's great to sit there and, in my case, assume that I can still do a £25 a week food shop and it be healthy and I fill a trolley, see my last video. Actually, it's going to need to double for £50 a week, potentially. And for a single person, I feel like that's obscene. But then if I look at what I'm getting, I may not be getting a lot of treats. I may just be trying to eat healthy and balanced. that's where I'm going to leave today's video. Let me know if you've done your own income analysis, how you found it down in the video below. I just want to clarify before a couple of you get in the comments and go, you shouldn't be doing this if you're paying off debt. That's not me. This is not me committing to stuff. This is me running a theoretical exercise and going, is a 2.5 year time span on a solo person's debt payoff journey, where at the minute there is one fixed income coming in, how feasible is that? Oh, and by the way, I've also got to manage the savings by myself as well, and costs going up, and I get really stressed and overwhelmed, and I might just look after myself a little bit more within there. Because also, if you don't look after yourself, this falls apart. This doesn't happen. You land back in the swamp again. So, thank you so much for watching. There's going to be some videos coming out over the weekend. I'm going to try and stick to a kind of every couple of day, possibly daily time frame for March. 30 minutes talking today. That's good. That's because I'm filming in the morning and I've not run out of breath yet. We're all doing well. So I'm going to love you and leave you. I hope you have a fantastic budgeting week wherever you are in the world. I hope that you are looking after yourselves out there and everyone as well. And I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye for now.